Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Canada's Real Deal. I'm your host, Anuj Dogra, and I'm a real estate broker in the Greater Toronto Area.
And I'm Anika Dogra, a mortgage agent level 2 in Ontario. And today we're going to be talking about the condo crash in Toronto, which is a very serious subject.
Sorry.
It's really, there's a lot of pieces to it. So
no more jazz hands,
yeah, it's not a cause for celebration. We're jazz hands for sure. Okay, so how are we in the middle of a housing shortage, but also having a condo crash? How does that work? Because one thing about Canada right now is everything that's not supposed to happen is happening. Like, it's a once in a lifetime event where nothing makes sense anymore.
Yeah, make it make sense.
Yeah. So how did this happen? For us to explain it, we're going to have to go back to around 2016.
Yeah.
So let's set the stage. There was a lot of immigration happening. So we needed housing. So the government supported a lot of projects and mainly condos being built.
Yep. The reason why they were pushing condos so much is because you can make so many houses in one plot of land. And plus, obviously, the city is getting maximum property tax out of it.
Yeah, literally like 200 to 300 units at a time in a relatively small plot of land. So it's very efficient.
Yeah.
But the other part of this equation is that people don't typically buy condos to live in, though, right? If you buy a condo, you're typically an investor type. It's not really where people go to raise families, or it might be where you start off your life. But typically people end up moving into a single family dwelling within a couple years, right?
Exactly.
So the type of people are investors. And so when you're an investor, you're looking to be economical, meaning that you don't really care about the layout because you're not living in it. You don't really care about the finishes. You don't really care about the appliances. You just kind of care about
the checklist,
the functionality of the space.
Yeah, I would even argue that they don't care about the functionality.
I guess what you really care about is the price and whether you're going to be cash flow positive.
Yeah, because the way you set up rents for condos is one bedroom here. It doesn't matter, your layout's more functional, is the same as the one bedroom upstairs.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't really make a difference. And investors know that. So they're just looking more for the checklist and price point for purchasing, and if it's going to be cash flow positive when they rent it out.
And cash flow positive depends on what kind of rent you're charging. Right. So back in the day when there was a lot of immigration, there was a lot of demand for housing so they could charge high rental prices.
Yeah.
Right. But things changed in the last couple of years.
The rent is actually going down, and it's been going down for almost 2 years now.
And the reason being immigration's gone down, basically.
Yeah, I think immigration policy, and I also think the foreign buyers ban has had a huge impact.
Yeah. And if you think about it, we haven't seen rental prices like this drop in 20 years. We haven't seen a drop like this. And so many condos are completing
at the same time.
So I think there was a stat that I saw that 30,000 units had been added to the market last year alone. And the way that the number of units is growing is actually outpacing population growth.
Oh, wow.
Right? So you can kind of see why there's a downward pressure on rental prices.
Yeah. And the other thing is people who can't afford their condos right now are also renting. So it's not even just pre-cons finishing. It's people who have condos resell, they can't sell it, and then they also rent it out, right?
Yeah.
So now you have a huge supply of condos on the market for rent.
Yeah. And actually another thing that we see often is people enter roommate situations, right? Yep. So it's very popular to just get a roommate and stuff, right? So that reduces the demand for units as well, right? Yeah. So it just makes more economical sense for most people, right? So that's another thing that rental prices are going to have to compete with. So in summary, there's a large influx of supply, and so that's driving down rental prices. And that brings us back to the fact that investors who actually bought these condos years ago are cash flow negative.
Yeah. And it's not just, they know they're going to be cash flow negative. So a lot of them are trying to sell them before they close, or they try to get their appraisal done when closing time comes, and it's very, very short. The shortfall is sometimes hundreds of thousands, 800,000 on the news recently. Yeah. We saw.
Every time I get a file where it's a condo, I'm like, oh, this is going to be difficult, because obviously these clients expected condo prices to maybe go up by 20 to 40% by the time it was closing. So they probably thought that they could even like get money back upon closing, right? Because it would have appreciated, right? So it would have cost them nothing to buy this condo. They would literally could have put down zero down payment essentially. But what happened is 5 years later, their condos are actually worth 20 to 30% less, and they are responsible for covering that shortfall.
So whose fault is this really?
Well, the developers think that the buyers are to blame, and that's why they're filing lawsuits against the buyers. In some cases, like individual buyers are being sued for like $1 million by very well-known, reputable developers,
Which we won't name.
Yeah, we won't name, but there's like 130 lawsuits that have been filed recently.
Yeah. And so this is the thing that a lot of purchasers don't realize. They think they can just walk away from their deposit and, like hands are clean. I don't need to be responsible for this anymore. But no, the builder can come after you for damages. And a lot of these builders are struggling. So then they just sell off these condos at very, very low prices. And then they come after you for the damages. So not only did you lose your deposit, but you're responsible for the difference in damage that builder sold the same condo for.
Yeah. So there's not really a way to walk away from this clean. But I think should be like an important case study of when people who are not in real estate try to figure out like when's the right time to buy. And then they have like their own theories, they have their own justifications. But I think you and I agree, the most important factor should be the purchase price.
Yeah.
Because that's going to determine what happens when the market changes for the better in the future or for the worse in the future. That's really what's going to make like in this situation, people bought condos way over what they were worth.
Yeah.
Right. And they got caught up in the frenzy because they were like, interest rates are low. I'm not going to have to pay that much per month. And this is the thing about Canadians is we're always thinking about what's the monthly payment going to be. What you need to think about is what is the balance on your debt.
Yeah.
Right. So like, if I can explain it simply, if the purchase price was lower and all of this stuff happened where the market crashed, you would have had to have been responsible for a smaller shortfall that might have been more manageable.
Yeah.
Right. That's the worst case scenario. Maybe you would have actually been like, okay, just didn't appreciate as much as I expected it to, but I'm not like, actually, I don't have a shortfall to cover. That might've been a better case scenario with a bad market, right? In the best case scenario, the market would have done better and you would have actually been able to make money off of your house immediately.
Yeah.
Right. So the important thing should have always been the purchase price.
But then you can pose the question, maybe the realtors or whoever your advisor was also to blame, right? Because there were all these realtors who were pushing pre-con. And I personally, it's very rare that I actually pushed a pre-construction project in my 6 years of business. I haven't really pushed anything.
That's definitely true because I can testify to that because I've seen so many people come up to you and be like, I'm ready to buy. I'm thinking about buying a condo or investing in a condo. I have like this much saved up, so this is all I can put. And you've always been like, don't put your life savings into that.
Yeah.
It might not work out. It's not the best investment. Like there's a chance that this could like blow up in your face, right? And then that was sound advice.
Yeah, and the other thing is, so these investors, it's not just the mortgage, right? We have a maintenance fee, which is always an estimate, and then property tax, and then you have your home insurance that you're paying, right? Property tax is an estimate too. So by the time it closes, people are paying like $3-4 grand for a 1-bedroom condo, which is what I pay for a detached home in Scarborough resale.
Yeah, and development charges also went up.
Yeah, there's development charges, there's levies, all these hidden fees for closing and double land transfer tax in Toronto, right? So that purchase price is not even the final purchase price. Then you have to cover a shortfall. Then you have to carry this monthly mortgage, maintenance fee, property tax, everything like that. So how would you be cash flow positive?
Yeah, you can only do it if you're prepared to hold on to it for years to come. So again, even in situations where people are walking away, that means you were not prepared to hold on to it, to actually let it grow as well, or to navigate whatever happens in the market. If you're investing, it's just like any other type of investment, right? Like there's a gamble that's going to take place there. If you're investing in stocks, you know that stock might go up or down, right? And you've got to be prepared to let go of it when it's the right time to let go of it and hold on to it even when it's not doing well.
Yeah, let me mention one thing that an investor had told me when he wanted to purchase a pre-con and I was telling him no. He's like, well, this pre-con is going to close after 2018, so there's no rent, fixed rent, right? That he doesn't have to comply with it, so he can go charge whatever he wants. But there's still market rent. Like you can't charge $3,000 for a 1-bedroom. The market is going to dictate what your rent the rent you can charge is, right? So they just go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then when those people are in stressful situations and they're willing to take 100, 200 cut in their monthly rent, then everyone else in that building has to follow suit now, right?
Yeah.
This is how rent continues to lower.
Yeah. So again, going back to who's to blame? Is it the system, right? Is it the system that keeps adding on charges to developers? Is it the system that decreased interest rates by a lot in 2020 and then rapidly increased interest rates and brought down house values, right? I think they'd have to take some responsibility there, but they might, argue that it was for the best of
necessary.
Yeah, it's the best of what they could do in that situation. Is it the real estate agents who might have been amateur and not know what they're doing, and
or chasing a check
and then misled people? There's like some situations where I heard of somebody who bought a condo and she knew that she would not have enough money to close, right? By the time that it came to closing years later. Mm-hmm. So she does not have enough to close on one condo, and so what her real estate agent and her came up with was to buy more condos.
Okay.
Wait for them to appreciate, sell them on assignment, and then take the profit from those condos to put towards her down payment on the condo that she's actually going to purchase.
Make it make sense.
Yeah. You can't afford one. So you're like, let me buy 8 others. And then, I'll be fine that way.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense. And
the real estate agent in that situation probably thought, this is a win-win for me because I get to get 8 listings at a time. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, do we blame the real estate agents who don't know enough about what they're talking about because they're like part-time agents or they haven't been in the industry long enough to, know how to navigate these ups and downs, or are they just being greedy?
Yeah, but then also the developers too, right? The developers who know that people are in this situation and they go sell off the unit. Why didn't you give that discount to the person who was originally purchasing, right?
Yeah, so let's break that down for the audience. So what the developers do is when the buyer walks away and forgoes their deposit, the developer is going to sell that unit. They can either hold on to it and then get refinancing done and stuff to hold on to it for a little bit longer. But oftentimes it's a headache. So they're just going to do a fire sale and then dump those units. So they flood the market with additional units on sale.
Yeah.
And then they're selling it for less. So now another buyer comes and buys it at a discount and you've just brought down the value of all the other units in the building. So other people who have closings coming up and are trying to get a mortgage done, their appraisals are not going to come at value anywhere close to value. So now they have an even larger shortfall to cover. Yeah.
And the other problem is when developers sell, they usually put it on MLS. So it's public. Mm-hmm. But when you are doing an assignment sale, there's usually a restriction where you can't publicly advertise. So you definitely can't do it on MLS. So once they see that, it is your set price. There's nothing else that you could say that, it's a developer selling. You're stuck.
Oh, wow. That's a really good point. I didn't even think about that.
They could have, at least the builder could have given that opportunity to you. We should be able to put it on MLS too then.
Yeah. If there was cooperation happening, the developer should have just said, well, if I'm willing to sell it at X amount of dollars in a fire sale, why don't I just adjust this price for you or make some sort of arrangement so that you can actually close and we don't bring down everybody else who's in this situation that all of us end up suffering. There's just no cooperation happening.
Yeah.
And that might also go back to the city because maybe the developer just doesn't have those types of margins for profit because of all these development charges and cost of development has gone up so much. Okay. So what are your options if you're a buyer in this situation?
Well, buyers, I would advise you don't walk away from your deposit and think, your hands are clean. For anybody who purchased a pre-construction and has trouble closing, there are some other options. You can try to rearrange another loan, right? I'm sure you can speak more on that, Anika.
Yeah, well, that kind of solution could work if you are already a homeowner and there's enough equity in your home, right? So again, we said investors in condos are typically people who already own a home and they're just looking to invest in a condo. But this will only work if you have enough equity built up in your home. So again, the most important thing is to actually know what your loan balance is and bring it down as much as possible if you want a chance to survive these types of situations, right? A lot of people are over leveraged. Canadians tend to refinance over and over and over again. So I don't know if it'll work for everybody, but there are options that you could do that so that you can reduce the shortfall that you have to cover for the condo. Otherwise, The alternative is that the developer will come after you, like you said, for damages. And if they come after you, they can go after your primary residence. So you might end up losing your home if you don't figure out a way to work with them.
Yeah, so I would just advise, talk to the developer, see if you can come up with some strategy. Sometimes developers offer vendor takebacks and give you that loan for the shortfall, and you can pay it over, X number of years, or private financing.
Yeah.
Rent it out.
The private financing might be tough because they won't go up to high LTVs on condos. So yeah, we'd have to look at your whole situation to see what we can do.
Thank you so much for watching. What do you think will happen with the Canadian condo market? Let us know in the comments below.
And if you like this video, please give us a like or share this video with someone who would benefit from it. And to keep up with future videos, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything.